Hi students, welcome to lesson number 7 on 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 theories of stratification. Introduction. Max Weber was one of the outstanding sociologists. Like Marx, he recognized the economic aspect of stratification, but he differed with Marx on several of his basic propositions. While Marx focused his attention on the toiling classes and looked at social development from the point of view of the laborers, Weber stressed on the role of the propertied classes in social development. Thus, Weber is often referred as a bourgeois Marx. In this lesson, we shall view on Weber views on stratification. And the objectives of this lesson is that the students will recall the 3 components of stratification in Weberian theory, including their definitions. Max Weber's views on stratification. As said earlier, Max Weber is regarded as one of the founding fathers of sociology. He is also the creator of the most potent counter-narrative to Marxist social theory. In this lesson, we will talk about his thoughts on class and other forms of social stratification. Weber, like Marx, thought that class was a fundamental form of social stratification. He used the Marxist criterion to define the term class, namely in terms of property ownership. According to him, the basic categories of all class situations were property and absence of property. He went on to distinguish between 2 categories of property ownership and non-ownership of goods and services. In Weberian theory, those with possession offered commodities, while those without offered services. Thus, a factory owner can offer goods which were produced in the factory. His workers, on the other hand, can offer only their labor power in exchange of wages. We will understand Weber's views on economy. Weber understood economic action as instrumental to the peaceful exercise of the power of control, which in its intended meaning is oriented towards meeting the demand for goods and services. His primary interest was in capitalism, which he dealt with in his relationship to the genesis of the modern state and the formation of state monopolies, and in his opinion, monopolies originally promoted capitalism, but later on they hindered it. To Weber, the factory was, regardless of prevailing economic order, a workshop with a division of labor and a type of work oriented to machinery. It is especially important to Weber that the outcome of competition, in spite of chance and fate, leads to the actual selection of those who have the necessary personal qualification in greater measure than other qualities such as devotion to superiors of demagogic talents. This is said without implying the value judgment that the victors in the competitive battle are, for that reason, more valuable from an ethical or some other point of view. Working half a century later than Marx, Weber derived many of his key concepts on social stratification by examining the social structure of Germany. Weber examined how many members of the aristocracy lacked economic wealth yet had strong political power. He noted that, contrary to Marx theories, stratification was based on more than ownership of capital. Many wealthy families lacked prestige and power, for example, because they were Jewish. Weber introduced 3 independent factors that form his theory of stratification hierarchy, that is class, status and power. he treated these as separate but related sources of power, each with different effects on social action. What is class and life chances? Life chances was another component of class that Weber emphasized. This was about the opportunities that came along with each stage of a person's life. A person born into a working class household receives a specific type of schooling which prepares him or her for specific jobs. The education will be less expensive and intensive than that of a youngster from a wealthy family. Both have different work opportunities. Their diverse family backgrounds place them in various social classes, in social contact, and manage the same pattern can be observed. A person from a working class background will interact mostly with other members of his or her class, where a person from the upper middle class will have acquaintance mainly from his class. Thus, Weber found that life chances was an important aspect of class formation. Because of his aptitude or other circumstances, the son of an industrialist may become a worker, but as Weber pointed out, they were exceptions, not the rule. He emphasized that what was more significant was that a class life chances or lifestyles were similar. This is what gave that class prominence as the next generation joined the same class. And as a result, according to Weber, the concept of life chance is a sharing of economic and cultural resources that are available in different ways to different groups. So, individuals' life chances were mostly controlled by market conditions. Given his upbringing, the son of a worker became a worker because it was the best occupation accessible to him. For the property-less, the market condition becomes more crucial because they must rely primarily on the production of services, and because they only have their talents. They are unable to advertise themselves in any other way, and on the other hand, property owners can rely on the income generated by their productive assets. And as a result, Weber's class had two main characteristics. It was first and foremost an objective category, and it was defined by the members' control or lack thereof over productive property. Second, all members of a certain group had identical life chances which set them apart from others. The life chances of an individual depended on the market situation in the case of those not owning productive property and on the ownership of productivity for those owning this. Based on his definition, Weber identified four classes in capitalist society, and these were upper class that comprised those owning or controlling productive private property, and this class was similar to bourgeois or the capitalist class in Marx analysis. Second, they are the white collar workers, and this class included all those who were engaged in mental labor, managers, administrators, professionals, etc. Third, the petty bourgeois. These were the self-employed and they included shopkeepers, doctors, lawyers, etc. And the fourth, the manual laborers, and these people sold their physical labor in exchange for wages. The working class was included in this class. Weber thus divided society into four classes as opposed to Marx's two-class model. Hence, though Weber found the basis of class formation was similar to that of Marx, he differed with Marx on the types of classes in society. We talk about the status as a stratification system given by Max Weber. Weber, like Marx, differentiated between class and class consciousness, and Marx considered class consciousness to be an important part of class, and if a class is aware of its status as a distinct group, it can express its concern. Weber also discussed class consciousness as well, but he did not believe it was required for the creation of a class. Instead, he looked for a way to avoid being class conscious. Despite the fact that the individual's class situation did not have to cause him to become class conscious, Weber was constantly aware of his rank. The formation of classes, according to Weber, was based on economic interaction, and he pointed out that status groups were typically referred to as communities, and he described status as a social position established by societal judgments of honor, and there were connections between class and status, but they were also in antagonism to one another. Class was linked to the creation of commodities and services as well as their procurement. Consumption determined one's status. As a result, prestige was linked to a way of life that restricted social interaction. The caste system in India, according to Weber, has the most rigorous and well defined status limits. A Brahmin may be a member of the working class because it is his source of income, but he will always see himself as superior to someone from a lower caste, even though their social status is same. At the same time, a Brahmin worker may have more interaction with other Brahmins from higher classes than his. We can see in our society that intercaste marriages is not accepted, even though both families are from the same social level, but have distinct caste statuses. Weber discovered that in a stratified society, property inequalities resulted in classes, whereas prestige differences resulted in status grouping, and there were two primary foundation stratification of society. And we look at the power as a stratification system as given by Max Weber. Power is a third organizing principle of social stratification. Unlike status and wealth, which can be clearly linked with group characteristics of ranking in societies, the principle of power is a relatively diffused attribute because it is not exclusive in character. It is always possible that a group with higher status in society or that which enjoys greater wealth also exercises more power in society. Nevertheless, one could make a distinction between, say, principle of privileges, whereas the latter tends to be based on the group's ability to use coercive means for other groups' conformity with action. Values and beliefs are determined by it. The concept of power, as Max Weber has discussed in his treatment of social stratification, rests on the fact that it endows the persons or groups which have power to impose their will on other groups by legitimate use of coercive method. In this sense, state offers us a good example of an institution which has maximum power. It has sovereign authority to impose its will on citizens of the society. When legitimacy of exercises of power is widely accepted by groups, in other words, when it is institutionalized in society, power becomes authority. Authority as a concept could be defined as legitimate power. Power as a principle also enters into the notion of social stratification, when its functions or the social ramifications begin to be influenced by the political processes in society, and when state begins to take more active or direct role in influencing the principle of social stratification. And a relevant example of this could be found in the policy of positive discrimination or reservation of jobs. Political offices and entry into education institution in our country by the state in favor of caste and tribes now declared as scheduled or as other backward classes. Max Weber, in his treatment of power as an element in the formation of social stratification, has rightly emphasized the significance of politics, political parties and their role in optimizing their access to power. Now, we look at the appraisal of Weber's theory on stratification. As a result, Weber's theory of class position and party correlates to his concept of three orders in society, that is economic, social and political. It also means that social stratification is not primarily dependent on class or economic factor. In fact, by examining societal stratification from economic, social and political perspectives, Weber offers a broader perspective than Karl Marx's economic determinism, which we will address later. Weber's theory of social stratification to a large extent pays sufficient attention to individual and higher attitudes and motivation in connection to class, status and power. The subjective component in status determination is based on psychological grouping, there is a sense of belonging to a group which is influenced by competition. And as a result, classes are regarded as subjective categories, while social strata are regarded as objective categories. A social class is a group of people who have a common style of thinking about a given economic system. People who are concerned about their positions and interests in the same way and who have a common outlook and attitude belonging to the same status group or class. Following the logic of social stratification subjective or psychological dimension, class is a psychological grouping of people based on class consciousness, that is a sense of belonging to a group. Regardless of structural criteria such as occupation, income, standard of living, power, education, intelligence and so on. The structural criteria are objective in nature and so have to do with the construction of strata, that is social and economic groupings and categories of people. Now, we look at the differences of opinion of Marx and Weber. It is observed that the two thinkers on stratification have certain commonalities, but there are also significant disparities. The basis of stratification for Marx was class, and the development of a class was objective in the sense that it did not occur as a result of a group of people getting together and deciding to form a class. It was formed as a result of a society's existing production relations, and as a result, a person's place in the class is important. His position in the production relation formed the basis for theories of stratification structure. He was a capitalist. If he owned or controlled capital and hired people. The opposing class of workers were those who did not own or control property. So, Marx's analysis included a discussion of class opposition. Social and economic transformation occurred as a result of the disagreement. Capitalists devised new strategies to combat labor, and this could be the result of new technology that improves manufacturing practices or new rules that restrict employees from gaining more power. Workers too are becoming more united in their struggle. When they realize that their major opponent is another class, they prefer to put their internal differences aside. As a result, they become more united. Thus, for Marx, class and class consciousness are not only social notions, they are necessary for social progress. Weber acknowledges Marx's view of class on one level. It does so, however, not to vindicate Marx, but to demonstrate how his approach has flaws. He emphasizes that society cannot be separated into only two groups. As a result of the market condition and the sort of jobs done, new classes arise. And as a result, he discovered the society is divided into four distinct classes. And as a result, the class relations are confusing. Weber also believes that neither class nor class conscious can fully explain stratification. And as a result, he places a higher emphasis on status, whereas Marx places a greater emphasis on class consciousness. Weber attempts to demonstrate that class consciousness is a minor part of social stratification. Status groupings are the foundation for him. He discovers that classes are fixed. However, status varies per class. When comparing the two, it is important to remember that Weber was a staunch opponent of Marx's ideas. He attempted to provide Marx alternatives. Weber's work was not complementary to Marx, hence the two cannot be compared. In this sense, it was created primarily to counter Marxism. As a result, despite some similarities, their works are fundamentally distinct. To summarize, Max Weber places a strong emphasis on the creation of classes. Weber's difference with Marx did not end there. The basis of the class was identical to what Marx claimed, but he has also underlined that there were four classes instead of two. He attempted to demonstrate the insufficiency of class analysis as a primary explanation for social stratification. Status, he claimed, was more essential than class. People were not as class conscious as they were status conscious, he claimed, and as a result he believed that status rather than class was a better indicator of social stratification.